They can explain it better when I mess it up. Right, okay. So Michelle asked me to come and talk to people a little bit about a method of marking that we're looking at implementing in ICT. And this has all come about through thinking about life without levels. And one of the things that we've been doing in IT over the course of last year, because our levels were disapplied a year earlier than everyone else, was thinking about what actually constitutes our descriptors. So we've been gradually rewriting our descriptors by looking at GCSE papers for both ICT and computing and the coursework mark schemes to see what a grade C was, and then reverse engineering that to work out our descriptors for what in the past would have been, level 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but in the future is going to be this language of levels, which may not have been introduced to all staff yet, because we just had that as a middle leadership team in our meeting this week. So what we wanted to do in IT was to try and make marking as simple as possible, and we've been using a similar system to this already this year, which has been quite successful in terms of cutting down the amount of time that it's taken us to mark our key stage 3. The key thing about all this though is everyone in the team and yourself being really clear on what you're actually assessing and what your descriptors are. And then we've developed this spreadsheet model to kind of generate grades and comments for us as teachers. And try to take that one stage further now by having a system whereby the student can have a tracking document which follows them through the whole of Key Stage 3, so that you're not just looking at one project in isolation, you're able to look at all the projects that they've done and where their strengths and weaknesses are. So I'm just going to run through that quite quickly. It might not take 15 minutes, and then if anyone has any questions. Do bear in mind though that this is something I started developing after our middle leaders meeting on Monday, so it's only sort of like a couple of days into development, and it will continue to change and adapt with feedback from Russell and Aaron and Kevin and other people. So this is sort of like a, alpha test sort of stage. Okay, so what I want to do is to have it in a spreadsheet document, and on this first page I've started putting together the titles of all the different topics that we do. So for example, in Year 7 we start with internet safety, then we've got a topic called vending machine. They're buttons because I've done the sheets for those so far. I've still got all the other pages to do, that's why they're just in this text at the moment. But the idea would be that all these other pages at the bottom would be hidden, so the students can see them, they can mess around with them, they can break them essentially. And what you could do is you could click on the buttons and you could get an overview of how the student's doing across all the units. So for example, it would tell you the grade they got in internet safety. Currently this one's at a foundation grade. Vending machine also, and it would track it in one place, so you can have a quick snapshot of how the student's doing. And then what we've done, if for example I take vending machine, if you click on the button it goes straight to the bottom of the page, because this is the bit of the page that the student would want to see. But I'm just going to go to the top first of all to discuss the way that this works. So what I've done is I've mapped the vending machine topic, and I've mapped it to, again, this reverse engineered descriptors that I've come up with for spreadsheets by looking at wherever a spreadsheet has appeared in a past paper or a coursework. I've kind of mapped what they've been looking for, and then securing here would have been what they would have expected in the past for a grade C, and then working forwards and backwards to get the other descriptors there. So what I've developed is some quite clear descriptors that teachers can look at to say, well, has the student done this in their work? So has the spreadsheet been coded with the basic layout, or have they made good use of formatting, or have they made effective use of formatting? And the language is something which comes from GCSE mark schemes, so something we're used to using in department, and will help in that way as well. If they have, then what you do is you can tick the check boxes to say that the students have fulfilled these skills, and what that does by spreadsheet magic or VLOOKUPs, is down the bottom. It works out from the weightings I've put on each of those descriptors. It works out from the weightings, it gives them a score, which works out the grade that they've got. But then as next year as teachers, we're going to put different codes in to go for schools. It also works out for the teachers what code they should be putting in to go for schools for that assessment. So instead of, for example, putting in 3A, 3B, 3C, we'd be required to put in an F1, an F2, or something like that, depending on what grade they got to. It also looks at which boxes have been ticked to generate this comment here. So this comment will change depending which boxes are ticked and which boxes aren't ticked. So it creates then the green comment for you so that the student knows what they've managed to do. So they've created a working spreadsheet with some evidence of formatting, however the formatting they've used is not effective and doesn't make the spreadsheet easy to read. So then the student can go and look at that, and then they can make some changes, and they can write in red in the student response what they've done to act on that feedback, and then this would be held in shared documents so that both the teacher and the student can have access to that file, which for us in IT it solves one of the problems that we always have, is that we do a lot of our marking on Moodle, and what we generally tend to do is to put a comment where they've uploaded a specific piece of work. So if you wanted to have an overview of the feedback that we're given over a range of time, you'd have to go to several links to see that feedback. That's not easy for anyone to do, whether you're CL of IT trying to have a look, or even harder if you're a member of SLT and you don't know which links are where things have been uploaded. So again, if you were Ofsted coming in or something like that, we would always have the problem of, can the kids remember where the feedback is? I know that in my lessons I'm constantly having to go through the steps of Moodle where you need to go to uploading things, so there's always that worry that they might not be able to explain clearly where it is. And then there isn't that whole overview, which, for example, this sort of sheet would provide to highlight strengths and weaknesses overall. And it's one of the things we have, that IT is such a varied subject. You might, for example, be really strong in one area. So at the moment in my Year 9 class, I have a student who's really good at computing and he really enjoys computing. So he's getting really high levels in that, but then he isn't in some of the other areas. And that doesn't necessarily flag it up quite as easily if you haven't got all the data in sort of one place, which is what I've been trying to do. So I actually think this system could work for any subject. It's not a case that it has to be held as a digital format. As a teacher, you could print out quite easily these pages. You could mail merge just this section to a Word document, which you print out, or you could mail merge it to a sticky label, which they stick in their books like we do at the moment. I just personally believe that anywhere where you have quite rigid criteria that you're trying to hit, it could save time by setting up tick boxes than the teacher going through and handwriting out the comments loads and loads of times, especially if you find that you end up writing the same comment lots and lots of times. So that's all I wanted to show you. I don't know if anyone had any questions regarding that, or any ideas about whether or not it would be usable in your subject.
I think the idea of that staff wouldn't have heard as much as you said at
Yeah.
the beginning about the leaders meeting. We did go through this new assessment and life out levels, and we talk about it at the inset day on the 30th
For now, it might have been more useful to think of this as level 3,
yeah,
this is level 4, this
and
is
it's
level 5.
it's like, yes.
So if you knew what someone needed to do to be a level 5,
Yeah.
you'd almost have that as a tick list down here. And if it was that kind of project, and it would need to be that kind of project where you could say, this is what I'm looking for, well, they've done that tick, they've done that tick, then that's where it would work. if it were maybe something more like an English essay where it's more looking for interpretation, that kind of thing, then perhaps this wouldn't be such a useful way forward. But for project work, and I think it would be quite a good thing. I know, for example, some subjects do have descriptors for what they need to have shown, or
well, they used to do with the old national curriculum
Yeah.
levels, yeah.
so if you were assessing on, I don't know, levels of competency, I don't know, I'm probably getting this really wrong, but levels of competency of drawing, and it was a scale of how good they were, you could have a scale set up and you tick where they were on the scale, and then it would say, you know, you're at this level of competency because you've shown that you can do this technique. However, to get to this level, you maybe need to hone it a bit more by doing this, and those comments could be.
What headings you've got on there? Can't read foundation.
Don't get too bogged down in that because it's something that's not been brought necessarily to staff yet. Just really for now, you want to think of foundation as a level 3, developing as a level 4, securing as a level 5, exceeding as a level 6, and excelling as a level 7. I think this sort of language isn't something that we've got to yet, but it is where we're going to be going. But I think that's probably for Vicky to introduce the staff on the staff day,
13th of June.
rather than something that maybe I should be talking about now. This was more just the system of doing the check boxes.
Yeah, I have to say I do like that, because in RE I know that we spend so much time just, and you know, it is personalised, but it is the same thing for countless students, so I like the fact that you can
where they started, if I just show you, because we have got maybe a bit of time. We started with this last year. Excuse me. Where we sort of had it all on one page. So this was more looking at a certain maybe task that they would do or a skill that they would display. And at this point we had all the students on one sheet. And again, it works in the same sort of way that you could tick it off there and it would highlight, in this case, what level they were at, and again generate a comment. What I've tried to do this year is, rather than having it all up here, is to have a document which tracks a student through all the years, which is a bit more complex. But I know already from speaking to my team that we have sort of opinions on whether it's better to have one for a class for each project or one for each student. I don't know, Aaron also might want to say how they found using this example, as opposed to when we used to mark kind of all the time and how much time it has saved.
Yeah, prior to this system, the marking was, so get the kids' work, download it, go through it, read it, mark it, write the feedback, give the feedback to the student. This system, you've got the sheet, you've got all the names down the side, you can use your tablets, if you've got your tablet, go around the class as you're going around, quickly tick the box, it generates the comment, and then what I used it to do is I used a Word document and mail merged the comment into the Word document, gave that in the shared area to the students, and then they could write their responses. It took marking down from probably 2 hours for a Key Stage 3 class to around about 30 minutes. So for me it was really, really effective.
And the other advantage is if you are able to use it in lessons, like Aaron was saying, there's been occasions where we've gone around with a tablet, we've got Windows Surface tablets, and if you have a lesson, you could walk around and kind of check it as you're going around the room, so you're then doing it live. And if you have that with you regularly, if you have that capacity, then it can become a live document. So you could actually have that with you on a tablet. I know that most people don't have tablets, but you could say to the student, oh, you know, you were there, you've now done that, let's take that up. Oh look, you've now gone up to 6C, well what do you now need to do? You now need to do this. Or there is the capacity to have this in a shared area, if you have that access, so that the students can maybe self-check themselves off with it, and then it generates, oh, I now need to do this, so that then they're not relying on you to tell them the next steps quite so often. So there are lots of different ways of doing this. There is this sort of way. or there is more of a portfolio way, which is what I'm trying to develop here, or it could be developed in many other different ways, depending on whether departments saw a use for it and where they would like to go with it. And I'm very happy to spend some time with people if they think this could be useful in terms of trying to see, well, how could we develop a solution for maybe languages or maybe art or maths or RE, citizenship, that kind of thing.
Thank you. It's very good. Thanks, Dave.
And that was that.
Thank you.
Thank you.